like for a mom who has a student who's very hands-on, maybe even coming into that age of a young teen, but we still have to be accountable to the state, and we still have to be accountable to, to the requirements. If they choose to go to college, we want to make sure that their high school transcripts give them that opportunity. What advice do you give to moms who are in that spot? Allowing and trusting that the Lord knows the plan that He's prepared for our students.
Yes.
And that even when they're not that enthused about doing book work, like they're not the kids doing the happy dance Monday morning. Moms and Master Books. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Hey, I am joined today by Miss Kristen and by my son Brandon. Brandon is number 3 in the birth order. Is that right?
Yes.
Sure.
3 in the birth order. Brandon.
Yes. So we're not in the office today. We're actually we're in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Kristen is going through radiation treatments. We're almost there. We have seven left to go.
Yes, including today.
Yes. So we absolutely appreciate all the prayers and everything that this group has provided. Before we start on today's topic, just an update. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Getting a little pink here, and but otherwise doing good.
Yeah. I'm going to adjust that one just a bit. Okay. You'll finish up radiation treatments next week, and then you're back.
Yes, then I'll be back home, back to work, all that good stuff. Still getting infusions every 3 weeks until the end of April.
But you are planning to go to Nashville with us.
Yes, I will be in Nashville.
So to Teach Them Diligently in Nashville, if anybody's in that area or wants to come, I think Tim is planning on coming. We're going to be there, hopefully Becky, and then Jessica and Anna. Yep. I think Tabitha is coming out there. So we're actually going to have a pretty fun crowd in Nashville.
Come see us in Nashville.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, we have 9 kids, and every one of them's a little bit different. They all have different personalities. We had one student that was different from...
Our different child.
This is a serious moment. Try to put your serious face on. We had one child that was different from birth, and I kid you not.
Yes.
He tinkered his way out the birth canal, came early, right before the doctor could get him.
He didn't come early. He just came quickly.
He came quickly.
He's just like, let's just get this done.
Yeah, he solved the problem. He got out before the doctor could solve the problem.
Yes.
But then when they set him in the
warmer
that had hoses and tubes and everything.
You had no hoses or tubes attached to you.
There was something there because remember he was playing with the tubing.
He was not. He was staring at his hand.
We remember this differently, but I was actually more conscious that day.
You were not. I didn't even have any pain medication, so don't give me that. He laid there and he just studied his hand.
Okay, I'll give you that.
He had his hand in front of him and he just slowly moved it and he stared and studied his hand for the longest time.
My recount of the whole situation?
Okay, what's your version?
Nah, you got it.
It was the next day he was playing with the tubes and hoses, apparently, but...
Tubes and hoses.
So that's...
Maybe you were the one playing with the tubes and hoses. I don't know.
I've been in a daze. Every time a baby was born, I was in a daze. So that's just who he was. And then as he got a little bit older, he enjoyed just tinkering and playing. He would build the Lego models. But then, he would sit. We had one window in the kitchen where he would just stand at the window and whine.
Cry and
Still
whine.
He just
wanted outside.
He did. Now, he was extremely brilliant when it came to book work.
Yes.
But that wasn't what really got him excited.
Yeah. It came easy for him. He could do it, but he did not. That's not where he wanted to be. So he was compliant until about high school.
Yeah.
And then the lures of real hands-on and life started to pull. So his high school transcript, it does not reflect at all the student he was capable of being. But yet in high school you learned more than ever.
Yeah.
Outside of bookwork.
Outside of bookwork, yeah.
Outside of bookwork. That's where your real education took root, was outside of the bookwork in high school, I would say.
Really, in middle school.
Profession, yes.
In middle school, you built the shipping table for the business we had when you were about 12, and loved working with tools. We had like 5 acres at the time, and I'm pretty sure I have tools that are forever scattered from.
If anybody
one
ever
end of the
takes
5
a metal
acres
detector out there, they're
the
going to
back.
find knives, they're going to find hammers, they're going to find saws.
It's out there.
Who only knows?
Yeah, it was a pretty. All my tools are. Craftsman didn't replace tools that were lost by your son.
By your son, no.
So
It's not part of the warranty, I guess.
No.
So we kind of knew from a young age that he was probably going to be more inclined to want to work with his hands and do things that were more trades-oriented than school-oriented. But here comes the rub in that there were requirements by the state that we
Yes.
had that you had to do the prepare everything for him.
Right.
So what do you recommend? You have somebody, in grade school you can kind of play around a little bit as long as they're getting the math concepts and they can read and,
But even
you can
then,
do all that.
we still, because we lived in New York at the time, we have a list like this of subjects that had to be done.
Okay, so you still had to prepare the lesson and everything.
Right. And he still had to get through all the regular high school stuff so that if he ever wanted to go to college, he could, plus the state laws.
Yeah.
So we accomplished all of that, even though the grades should have been higher than what they were.
I passed.
Yes.
Well,
He made sure he passed.
almost. I do remember we had to take the California Achievement Test, and Brandon took the California Achievement Test, but he wanted to be outside, so he basically just went through and went chink, 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 chink.
Guessed his way through.
Yep.
Remember? And Brittany, who joins me usually, she was so she wanted to keep up with her brothers, and so she saw that he was done like in 15 minutes. So she also accelerated herself through it that year.
She panicked.
Yeah, she thought she was really missing it. So, okay, so what do you recommend?
I had my hands full with my older group of children. I don't think Brandon will deny that.
Yeah. Pretty harsh. At times.
They were good kids, and we had a lot of fun, but I had my hands full.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, what do you recommend, like for a mom who has a student who's very hands-on, maybe even coming into that age of a young teen? And I said to Brandon, I said, hey, we're going to do this. Why don't you sit in with us? He's visiting from New York, and so I said, the topic is, what do you do when your student prefers wrenches over pencils? And he said,
Give them wrenches.
yeah, which is the easy answer. But we still have to be accountable to the state, and we still have to be accountable to, to the requirements. If they choose to go to college, we want to make sure that their high school transcripts give them that opportunity, which yours absolutely does. We fought to make sure that. What advice do you give to moms who are in that spot?
Well, I'll go back and say when we had to get through school, we just had to do that, so we did it. I would say don't add on tons and tons and tons and tons of extra stuff. Keep it as minimal as possible. But we always made it a priority to get the Lego sets. And I couldn't always afford the Lego brand, so I would scour eBay for Mega Block sets. Yes. But they were good. I mean, they kept you busy.
Mm-hmm.
We always had to look for things that were hands-on with you. But then another thing that we were discussing prior to all this is I'm actually more interested in tinkering than you are. I'm more interested in the outdoors than you are. So, but I didn't have the free time because I'm playing role as mommy.
You're still having
and
babies.
Still having babies and all that. So by high school, it kind of had to transition over to you, and you had to take over doing some things that were very much outside of your comfort zone. So you took them hunting. You made sure that those things happened.
I want to, but you did.
Right. Yeah.
I sat through every one of those hunter training courses with you.
Yep. But then you said, what was it that you told us that you get a kid?
What?
What did you tell us beforehand that you get a kid that's like that, the snowmobile?
Oh yeah, give them a snowmobile or a lawnmower doesn't work, and give them some wrenches and tell them to fix it.
Yep.
That was probably my most experience.
Yeah.
Just trying to get something to run.
Brandon added a lot of interest to our lives, for sure. We had to do hunting. That was interesting, and he's been a remarkable hunter ever since the first hunt. Right, like I let him go out and hunt one night, thinking he'll never get anything. It was a very stressful night. I remember it well. And he calls like 15 minutes later and is like, I got one. Now what do we do?
And he's like, oh, shoot. You got one. But he's very happy too.
Yeah. And in all the training courses, one time we were hunting, and the way our property was, some of the locals would also hunt around us. So I wanted to protect him. So I put him in the middle of our property, and I would go sit at the end of the property so I could stop anybody heading towards my son. So we were out one morning, and the neighbor calls and he goes, the whole day or the whole morning you had a 10-point buck sitting right underneath your stand. And I'm like, I wasn't there to hunt. I was there to protect my son, not to hunt. I really didn't care if it was a 10-point buck. So.
Well, we also had purchased a building for our business, and so Brandon had the opportunity with a couple of people that came in and helped us. My dad, a family friend that helped teach you. So just taking opportunities, you got to work with what? What'd you work with on the building?
Worked with Dell and Jim.
Oh yeah, Dell. That's right, my uncle.
Framing, drywall, trim, electrical.
Right.
We learned quite a bit there. We also bought a lot of tools, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think one of the things was opportunity. A kid like that has an interest towards mechanical things and hands-on, you don't have to force that. Like if we had somebody come to help us put in a heating system, Brendan never left that day. I mean, he just stayed the whole day helping with that. And the same with the electrical. Like you were interested in that, so you did it. It wasn't something we had to try to force or develop. We couldn't keep you away from those things.
Yeah.
And
so it's utilizing the opportunities that present themselves and then looking for opportunities as well.
Yes. Yeah. Now, one of the things that we did, and I've mentioned this before, but at the time, Craigslist had really just kind of come online. Mm-hmm. And we would go, and we lived in Western New York, which has a lot of snow, and we would go in the summer. We drove all around Western New York buying up old snow blowers. And
first year we did 16 snowblowers.
16 snowblowers. So, yeah, I mean, somebody drove all around. and the funny thing is, Brandon would call him, we'd go, and I would just stand there like a dope, and he would negotiate the deal with him, and then I'd help him load it in, and we would go. And then he reconditioned them and put them up for sale. It's so cool today because with Facebook and social media and all this different technology, you can do this better than you ever could before because you can
still do it.
You can access. Yeah.
How do you do it?
You go on Facebook Marketplace, you find something, you buy it in the summer.
And what if you don't know how to fix it?
YouTube.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so I don't think we fully answered, but to the kid that is more inclined this way, and to a parent who wants to help, but they also have to be accountable to the state. The basic 4 that we have listed in Master Books kind of gives you, if you do those 4 subjects, that's your core of math, language, history, social studies, and science. And then a lot of what we would do, you would be creative with electives.
Yeah.
So when we did that, traveling around, he spent countless amount of hours. You counted that as
Yes.
Was it shop, or there was some
Yeah, I
some
don't remember
mechanical
exactly.
engineering, something?
Yeah, I
that
don't remember
was-
how I put it on a transcript, but I definitely tracked some of those hours that you applied yourself and was learning trade type stuff and applied that to the transcript.
Yeah, I know you did some was business for negotiating and
Yeah.
whatnot, because everything I bought I had to negotiate for and talk down.
Right,
And
and you
then-
had to
and then
track
you
your
marketed it,
expenses
too.
and marketing. Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah, we
There
had
was
to
a
track
lot.
expenses, and profits had to go towards tools and then the next snowblower and whatnot.
So sometimes you can go online and you can look at like charter schools or course descriptions, but you can look at some of the like what would a school, like high school credit for business courses or entrepreneurship or mechanical engineering or ag, because ag, I know Isaac, that's what he does with his class. A lot of his students come in and they rebuild things and do projects and that type of thing, and that's in a public school setting. So schools already have these courses and titles listed, and that's what you would do. You would find a title, a course that already
Right.
existed that had that title and kind of a job, the course description that
Right.
matched it, and then that's what you would put on the transcript. So it didn't have to be works with snowblowers on a transcript. It was more like the entrepreneurship side or sales and marketing or the mechanical engineering or something like that that would fit with
Right.
a course description.
What would your recommendations be for a mom of a middle schooler that you have to meet the requirements, but you have a kid that's more hands on?
I'll do the lightest load of schoolwork and
Heavy on
more hands on. I mean, I didn't learn anything unless I could apply it to something, so,
right.
you know, I did still learn nothing or retain the information unless I could apply it to something in actual real life, so that was kind of difficult.
And I think that's where Master Books excels, is we've really tried to make our curriculum apply to real life. And so I think you would have done a lot better with Master Books curriculum
Probably.
that does that versus
Yeah.
other. The other question that I have for Brandon is, I would like you to explain how your career path went, because for me, I always expected all my kids would go to college, and so that was a really hard thing for me to let go of. So I want you to just kind of share a little bit about your career path, how it's looked, and where you are today.
First, I went into construction because I liked working construction,
Mm-hmm.
and then I realized I don't want to do that every day of my life. So
You
then
still do
I
construction.
still do
though.
construction. I didn't want to have it as a living. I enjoyed it as a hobby, not as a career.
Right. And so you
So,
still use it. You still
I
earn
was happy
income
I
as side jobs.
Didn't go down the route of getting licensed in that because it would have been a waste of time. So I was happy that I at least explored it before moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Then I worked for a factory, so that was hands-on. That was wrenches. So that was good that I had experience with snowblowers before and lawnmowers and just being able to turn a wrench and figure problems out, because that put me above everybody else already.
Right. And then what about the education you got there?
And then they paid for trade school. That was a pretty big deal.
And what kinds of things did you study in trade school?
I did mechanical drives, so that's gears, belt driven, figuring ratios out and putting together anything that's mechanically driven. I did electrical, became a certified electrician, industrial electric, PLC programming, and I also did machining.
He's looking at his wife.
I can't remember what I did. And then I took machining courses, so hands-on machining and CNC programming. And then as soon as I got that, I moved on from there.
Mm-hmm. To your current job?
Yep.
And what do you do today?
It's a long title. I do assembly and test on electrohydraulic actuators for the F-35 Lightning II fighter jets.
Cool.
So, it all paid out. It all worked out.
Mm-hmm.
So how old are you?
24.
So you're 24, and you're working in a position where you're building parts and testing parts for fighter jets.
Yes.
So that's pretty decent. And in that time, how much college debt did you acquire?
None.
So one
my
of the
current
things.
job pays for college, so.
Yeah, this job actually will
Which, there's about 6 guys I work with. We're all the same exact age. They all went to school. But none of them could turn a wrench, so they're starting from the bottom up. I've already at least can turn a wrench.
And how much college debt do they have?
A lot.
And so, what opportunities do you have now that you're toying with as far as your education goes? If you decide you want to pursue college, what are the opportunities now for you to do, and how much will it cost?
No, it's pretty vast, but they pay for it, so I don't have to. And
so, what are some degrees you're toying with?
That's a tough one. Industrial engineering, I kind of like that aspect. I don't know. I'm still bouncing back and forth, still figuring out what I like, so I'm not 100% sure. Might go back for more machining.
Once you start building up a resume, though, like now you've got 2 companies that you've worked with and risen into the ranks and continue to rise, then it becomes much easier to transfer, like when you want to transfer horizontally or vertically, experience counts for something.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues, and not... College is different for every student, and I think you have to...
There are people
you have to
in our company that you need to go to college to get there, but they knew what they wanted to do.
Right.
As far as hands-on goes, you can do anything, and unless you've had experience doing things in a job setting, you don't know what you want to do forever.
Yeah. The reason that I bring up college debt is because sometimes one of the hardest things with your kids is allowing the Lord to be in control instead of you being in control. What we wanted for our kids was that they would all go to school, they would sit at their desks, do their schoolwork, get A's, cause no issues, not have any human sin nature, not be interested in girls until they were age appropriate, and which would be much later in life. All of these things. Sorry, Taylor. And then go to college, to one of a Christian college where they were actually more grounded than their professors, get that, and then go into a CEO position of a Christian company and change the world. That didn't happen that way for all of our kids.
Did you know that was the expectation?
Wouldn't you say that was kind of the underlying expectation? I'm still struggling with this. My other son is holding the lamp right now, and I'm still struggling with this. So he's in that phase. So allowing and trusting that the Lord knows the plan that he's prepared for our students.
Yes. And
that even when they're not that enthused about doing book work, like they're not the kids doing the happy dance Monday morning after Christmas vacation.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon was always very compliant, and so he always did it. He had the best handwriting in it of any of the kids, and so, yeah, you did.
Cool.
Any of the upper kids, you had the best handwriting. So I didn't have to fight him so much on being
put
neat.
more effort into it then.
Yes, you did. And the frustrating thing for me is I always knew that most of what I got from him was not at his potential. It was
school, because I had something to apply it to. I was always the top.
Yeah.
But
in elementary,
that's because I had something to apply it to, which was different. So it was for my job. It was something I was actually interested in. It wasn't like I had to do it. So
right.
That was different.
And you did better in elementary. It was more when you hit high school that was really...
Well, we had a lot of opportunities because you guys bought the building and
right.
Things were moving. There was stuff to do, so it was kind of hard to just sit inside.
Yeah,
right.
And I would just tell you, just get it done, and then you can do all this other stuff.
That's why I started doing it at night instead of in the morning.
Yeah.
I can do all my work at night before bed, and in the morning I had free to do.
Free to do what you wanted to do. All the stuff that actually mattered, that you were actually getting an education. That's the frustrating thing about the system that we're locked into, is you have to get XYZ done. And you do still need an education.
It's not a bad thing.
Right. But it just locks you in from it. You can't always spend the time getting the education that would be more rounded and suited to what you wanted. But it is what it is.
Well,
so we did it.
launching the kids we have, we can say that if your student is more hands-on and is more inclined to want to move towards a trade, you can work with the system, make sure they have the minimum requirements, but don't do things like overload them with things. Don't panic if they're not overly excited about doing math and writing papers.
Yeah, and know that some of the stuff that you may be doing to fulfill requirements, just know that it may be just that. We joke about in our family about Spanish because Brandon took 2 years of Spanish and he passed.
I took Spanish 4 times.
You took Spanish 4 times. He still can't speak Spanish.
My last job, I was happy I didn't want to speak Spanish. So.
Well, we had that as a state requirement. So we met the state requirement. He learned it for the moment, but
if I got nowhere to apply it,
he's not going to retain it. And so I just had to be happy that, okay, we met the requirement. And I get that this is an interest of his. You know, if he's going to be a missionary to a Spanish-speaking country, then he will learn it to know it versus checking it off the list. So if that's what the Lord ever calls him to, he's going to learn it. So for now, we just need to check it off the list.
Google Translator.
Or Google Translator, yeah, there you go.
Good. So, tips for somebody that has tips for a younger student. So when you get older, it's easier to have access to cars and lawnmowers and stuff like that. What about for a young student?
Well, I think if you have small appliances that have broken and are no longer any good, let them tear it apart.
First thing I worked on was your recliner. Foot kept falling off. Mm-hmm. So I screw it back in again and stripped out. So I forgot to pack something in there. I don't know, it was like 3 or 4.
And just giving opportunities that come up that they can tinker
with. Piece of furniture on the side of the road and say, fix it.
Well, we don't always advise that because we've had friends who did that and they brought bed bugs into the house. So don't pick up furniture. Metals, good. Not always cloth furniture.
Yeah, it's a cloth. Like dressers.
They had dressers.
They had a beautiful couch.
Cabinets.
That they put on,
Or, I'm not talking upholstery. That's...
yeah.
But totally, you could go to yard sales. You can pick up. You can ask friends and relatives. Friends and relatives are a great source of little projects like that.
Mm-hmm. We did some other hands-on projects. Like I was not very good in carpentry, but we did little things like building birdhouses and stuff like that together. We built the chicken coop together. We just looked for things that we could do, and some of this may be out of your comfort zone as a parent, but part of what we sign up for when we become a parent is serving the needs of our family. And so I hated the woods. My idea of a vacation would be Hampton Inn, where breakfast is served, and I get a king-size bed and guaranteed satisfaction. That's not Brandon's idea of a vacation, for sure. And but that didn't mean that I couldn't set myself aside for a bit to make sure that I served him. And we've tried to do that with the kids with all of their interests, and continue to do that even when it puts us outside of our comfort zone. And so we tailor it, really, and that's the beauty of being able to tailor it to the needs of the student.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just going to have to reach outside of the school environment to provide things. So this stuff all took place after the schoolwork was done. We had to get through the schoolwork, and then we tried to provide opportunities.
Yeah. But school systems also have tracks for career-minded kids. I think sometimes in homeschooling we look at it from the standpoint of what does merit roll, honor roll look like, or advanced placement. But when I went to school, there were kids that would go to VOTEC or BOCES, and they would get all the training in auto mechanics and hair and all of these things. So they covered the basics and then did that. We don't always look at that type of approach to homeschooling.
Trade school was good. I very much enjoyed it.
And I would think that could count as credit.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
And were there high school students?
Mm-hmm. I took adult trade school, so that's a different. That was everybody.
Yeah, he got certifications.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can still get certified as in the high school BOCES, but you're working with everybody that they're all interested in the same stuff.
Right.
So, and it's more controlled environment.
Yeah. So it was exposure to a lot of things, and then kind of narrowing in. And then the Lord has really directed your steps, and it's been fun to watch.
And can I say that we have our son with us that he's just an example of somebody that was so strong in that he just loved anything hands-on. In fact, we would ask you what you wanted to do when you grew up, and you didn't know. because there were so many things
I
that,
still don't know.
yeah, there's so many things that interest you that are on the mechanical, hands-on type,
Well, somebody might know what they want to do hands-on,
right.
but, I mean, my experience, until you've done it every day for a career, it's a little harder to pin down one specific thing. There's so many things hands-on you could do.
Yeah.
Right.
And that you have an interest in.
That was a nice thing, at least, too, with trade school, is that, you're not going to have access to $1 million router. But in trade school, you can have access to that. You can see if you like it.
Right.
Right.
So you don't have to go have a career in it to find out that you don't like programming CNC machines. You can find out ahead of time that it's not something you enjoy.
But there are also girls out there that prefer that. And I was more that kid. I mean, I remember, I don't know, I was probably in grade school and my radio broke and I tore it apart and I fixed it and put it back together. I always loved to do that sort of thing. And so it's not just the boys.
Oh, yeah, there weren't just guys in trade school.
Yeah.
Everybody did it, so.
Yeah. So realize that your girls also may have a bent.
Yeah.
And he cooked. You cooked too. You had an interest. Anything. Literally anything.
Now, he cooked in the day when he had to cook for all 11 of us. He was actually the chef for the family for about
I still
2
cook
years.
for 11 people. I just eat it myself now.
So really, that could have been another career path that you could have taken had you decided that was something that you wanted to do as a full-time job. So there was just a lot of things, anything that involved hands-on and creating.
Brandon's the only person I know that actually blew something up.
Yes, there's actually a story about Brandon in language lessons. It was in the Bible and grammar course, and I kept it in the language lessons level 6, and that was his brownies baking that exploded all over the. Yeah,
But it didn't just run over.
It was epic.
It
blew.
blew.
What mistake did you make?
Baking powder.
You put baking powder instead of baking soda? Was that it?
No, it was teaspoon to cup.
Oh. So there was a lot in there.
Yeah, attention to detail. That's something you definitely got to learn.
That was quite the day.
Yeah, that was what a mess that made. But if moms, we have to make room for the messes for these kids, for all of our kids. But you got to make room for those messes. And so, yeah, it was a mess. That was a mighty mess.
Yes, it was.
But it was a learning opportunity for you.
It never happened again.
No, it never happened again.
Yep, I learned you just buy the pre-made brownies and
Or there's that.
you don't make stuff alone. It's for the professionals.
Well, and I know we've talked about this as well before, but my daughter-in-law bought me a book actually on Chip Gaines, and I was reading it last night, and it's interesting to see how academically he struggled and was even in a special needs type program, but I don't think anybody would say that he's not a success today, considering the empire they've built with Magnolia Farm and the TV show and all of that. And there's story after story like that. And sometimes we look at our kids and we want them to fit into, we judge them by the grade they are in math, language, social studies, and science. And that's not indicative of who they are and who they're going to be in life. It's who they are when it comes to math, maybe, or the challenge that they have in a curriculum. But that's not the sum total of a person.
Even the fact that you see this kid that is capable of straight A's or A's and B's, that's getting B's and C's, even for that kid that's not living up to their full potential, we don't necessarily have to make them live up to their full potential academically.
A guy at my previous job who did all of our machining, and he didn't finish high school, couldn't finish it, just had trouble learning, and he never went to school for CNC programming. He watched somebody do it, watched him learn how to do it, and he's been doing it his whole life now. Can program anything, can design anything, taught himself, but he couldn't finish high school.
Yeah. So that, we want our children to achieve the best, and we want to promote the excellence in academics. This is more for the parent that we're talking to, as a parent who's just kind of overly concerned and anxious because their student doesn't seem to be grasping it or doesn't have an interest in school. And we just want to encourage you that now that we're on the other side and we've graduated a few, some of those late night conversations, the anxiety that we might have had, the fears that we might have had that they were going to be homeless and begging on the streets in Gowanda, they didn't come to fruition more than a week or so before we went and picked them up.
But I didn't have a lot of those fears with Brandon, but I always felt like, man, he's just not, that potential. I know he's capable of A's and B's, but you know what? If I had to do it all over again, you'd still have to do all the academics. Mm-hmm. But I would focus a lot more on the outside the academics and really probably pare back some of the academics a little tiny bit. Maybe not so many extra subjects and more going to a garage sale and picking up things for you to tinker with.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
The other thing that I would add is just because they're not interested in college straight out of high school doesn't mean college isn't an option.
Right.
I went to college and finished late in my 20s. I got my associates out of high school. It meant nothing. It was a struggle. The professors, I was there with Kristen, and they basically said, you have Kristen, you'll be okay. But then I had to do it on my own when I got older. But it actually made so much more sense because I actually had something to apply it to. And I got into a business school that was perfect for where I was in life and what I wanted to achieve. So sometimes we push our kids to just follow this pattern. And, now Brandon's at a place where he's looking at going to college.
Maybe.
Yeah. And now he has somebody who is willing to pay for it as well. So that helps there.
Yeah, it does.
So and you'll have you'll learn.
It doesn't
more.
mean it has to be free to go, but
no, but you'll learn more because of the position that you're in now than what you would have fresh out of high school.
Mm. Yep.
And you'll apply yourself. I guarantee you more.
I think, the inclination would have been you would have gone for something more general. Where now you'll go for something more specific. Yeah.
I would have gone for business, probably gotten licensed in construction just because that was the first thing I wanted to do, graduating.
Yeah.
And then hated it.
Yeah, and then I would have not enjoyed it.
You tried to find a way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where now you actually have a better
wasn't something
idea.
that I ever thought I'd get into. But.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hopefully this has been a blessing to somebody. I thank you guys for joining me. And we certainly do appreciate this community. Your comments and stuff, because we're in a different place and I'm not able to have good lighting, one of my sons is holding a light and I can't see.
Plus we're looking at two screens. If we look like we're looking strange and our eyes are going all over, it's because we've got two screens and there's a pretty good distance between them. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
It didn't work out quite as well as I wanted. And I'm sure the volume was a little soft in some places, so I apologize for that. But I'm hoping for somebody here today that this was a blessing and maybe gave a little bit of encouragement and some insights. And I think when you look at Master Books, the way we set it up where there's not a lot of busy work, it's kind of that 80-20 rule of teach them what they need to know, give them a lot of application, I'll give you plenty of room to add on to the material if you want to. If they want to go deeper, let that be. As far as communication skills, like with writing strands, the ability to communicate your ideas is a skill no matter what you do. No matter what you do, you need to know how to communicate. And I will say, we've worked with a lot of PhD level people who had academics, but were not good communicators, and it hurts them. So communication skills are effective, and then being able to network.
It's easier to move up
if you can communicate. And then network, learning how to build relationships and how to make connections, because it really is that it's not what you know as much as who you know in a lot of positions. Not everyone.
Yeah, I have that advantage at work is I relate with the senior techs more. I can't relate to anybody my age. They've got their own clique. Their interests don't interest me, where the senior techs who have experience. Well, that's where I gravitate.
You were always 12 hanging out with 70-year-olds.
Teaching you how to do electrical.
But I'd rather hang out with somebody that knows more than I do so I can learn.
Yeah.
And that's benefited me quite a bit.
Yeah. You were socialized as an old man before.
Yeah.
He would drink coffee with old men. So does Nate.
do.
Nate would go down to Tim Hortons and play. He'd play cards with like 70 and 80-year-olds every night. Like that would be his high. Was can I go play cards with 80-year-olds?
Brendan wanted to do electrical and drywalling with the
old
older
men.
guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, be sure to comment, and we will check your comments. And if there's questions we can answer, we will definitely do that. We do again appreciate all the prayers and support that you've given. It's definitely, we know that the Lord has answered prayers.
Absolutely.
The surgeon said it was a miracle, and we believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, guys. Hey, God bless. Y'all have a fantastic week, and Lord willing, we'll speak to you next week. God bless.